All right, so our friend Arky sent me a pretty interesting little math problem and asked if I could help him understand what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the link to the video that he sent me, and I'll just pause this video and take a second to watch it, and then and we'll go over it. So in the video you just watched, this magician asks you to pick a number from 1 to 10 and then do some operations to it, and then it magically tells you the number you picked and how old you are. So let's write down all the steps that he had us do, and let's see what happens if we can get an equation that we can look at. So first, he asks us to pick a number between 1 and 10. So a number between 1 and 10. Take that number, multiply it by 2, add 5, and then multiply by 50. After we do all that, we need to add 1766 if you have already had your birthday already, or add 1765 if you haven't had it yet. Then our last step is to subtract year born. After you do all that, you're going to get a 3-digit number, and the first digit is going to be the number you chose, so the number from 1, and these last 2 digits are going to be your age. And I hope you tried it, but if you did, it actually does work. As long as you do all your math correctly, use a calculator, it's going to give you the number that you chose, and then these last 2 numbers are going to be your age, and it's kind of cool. So what I want to do is look at what is actually going on here, and let's see if we can figure out why this magic trick always works. So I'm going to just shrink this up so we can still see it, but it's out of the way. And I'm going to try and come up with an equation that follows this. In order to do that, we're going to first need to define some variables. So I think we can get away with 2 variables. If we make one variable the number that we choose, and the other variable our age, I think we can write everything else in terms of those 2 variables. So let's do that. Let's let x is always a good variable. X be the number between 1 and 10 that we chose. And let's let y, another great variable that we like to use, be our age. And that is not specific. It could be 1 digit or 2. I'm assuming most of us have a 2-digit age, but there's our variables nonetheless. So then let me just move that over here so it's out of the way. And let's see if we can write an equation now that we've got some variables defined. So we're going to take our number, x. Then we need to multiply by 2. So we have 2x. Then we need to add 5. Then we need to do a big times 50 with that whole thing. Remember, order of operations is going to play a big part here. So we need to make sure that first we multiply by 2, then we add 5, then we multiply by 50. Using our PEMDAS, that should work out okay. So let's assume we've already had our birthday just for simplicity's sake. We could do this example assuming we hadn't done it yet, but it's the same thing, the same type of calculation here. So let's add 1766, assuming that we've already had our birthday, and then we need to just subtract the year that we were born. Now, I'm going to write the year that we're born in terms of our variable y. So how are we going to do that? Well, I think since it's the year 2016, we can just subtract 2016 minus our age. So this example, I think, is only going to work for this year. In 2017, I think it's going to be off by a little bit. So this whole thing here is going to be our year that we're born. Year born. All right. So now we've got all that. I think that's going to be the entire operation that he had us do. And that's going to spit out a number for us. Well, it looks pretty ugly right now, so let's do some simplifying. So we can write 100x plus 250 plus 1766 minus 2016 plus y. Remember to distribute that minus sign. When you add 250 and 1766 and subtract 2016, you get 0. So this next step here is just going to give us 100x plus y. And that's it. That's what this whole thing boils down to. And remember, x and y stand for the number that we chose and our age. So let's see what happens here. Now, I'm not trying to mock you, but I am going to do a little number review. So remember, this is our hundreds place. Here's our tens place. And here's our ones place. Just a little recap. I know you know that, but it'll help with this example. So in our hundreds place, let's look at this number, okay? So you picked a number between 1 and 10, and that's what x is. Well, what happens when you multiply that number by 100? Isn't that number going to end up in the hundreds place? It sure is. So say you pick 2, this is going to end up being 200. Well, what do you think is going to be there? That's going to be our x every single time. That's always, always, always going to be x. So that's kind of cool. So that takes care of the 100 place. And now let's look at the y value here. So this is what? This boiled out. I mean, we didn't even really put our age in officially. We put in the year we were born. But when we simplified, our age ended up being in there. So what's going to go in these last two spots here? That's going to be our age. Yeah, every time. So even if it's a single, if you're 3 years old or if you're 55 years old, that age will always be in there. Now, I think the only time this won't work is if you're over 99 years old, right? If you had a 3-digit age, I think our magician is assuming that that's not going to be the case. So age goes here. So that ends up being the secret behind this magician's trick is no matter what you choose, the numbers will fall out in such a way that it always ends up being that first number is the number you chose and that the last two end up being your age. So for an example, let's say we choose our number to be 3 and our age is 27, all right? So then we are going to take 3, multiply it by 2, add 5, multiply by 50, add, let's say we haven't had our birthday yet, 1766. Then we have to subtract the year we're born, which would be 1988, or we could do our 2016 minus age. And I'll just punch that into a calculator and we get, amazingly, we get 327. Incredible. We got, there's our first number, boom, and there's that second number. So that's going to work every single time. Just a quick note when you're doing this, I know just a little review, be careful with order of operations in here. Make sure you multiply before you add, and then get that whole number before you multiply by 50. All right? So pretty neat little math trick. Thank you, Arky, for sharing it with us. See you out there.